Hello and welcome to Wagner's Tech Talk. Today we're going to take a look at 10 tips from the RG350 tips page, such as being able to play a two-player Atari Stella game, or playing video directly on the RG350, as well as a new accessory. Let's get started. Let's start out with tip number one. Not the most exciting, but organizing folders. It's a question I get quite a bit. So we're going to go to the micro SD card, which is plugged into the computer, and you want to create a ROMs folder. And under the ROMs folder, create a folder for each of the emulators or systems you want to install. You can abbreviate the folders such as GB, GBA, so forth. Now let's move on to tip number two. How can you easily add OPK files to your external SD? Well, you don't have to copy these OPK files directly to the internal card. You can put them directly on the SD card. So here we're going to go into the media folder, go to the SD card, and I'll create a folder here on the root of the SD card called apps. And now we'll copy a few OPK files to the apps folder, and as soon as you install it into the RG350, they will be available immediately. So there's no complicated copying to the internal micro SD card. Just pop in the external card and go to emulators in this case, and you'll see Stella, and there you go. Now on to tip number three, which is adjust the screen brightness. I've had a few questions on this. To do that, just hold down the power button and press the volume up or down. And that's how you adjust the brightness. Pretty cool. Alright, now let's move on to tip number four. Tip number four is how to reset the main for all button mapping. Should you hose it up like I did in this case, if I go to the config menu and assign it to the exit button, now I can't exit. It's stuck. So we'll just go into Dingix Commander and move down to the main for all, press the X, select delete, hit yes, and then Y and quit. And then we'll go back in and we'll press A here and we'll set our directory. So we'll move up to the root, go down to media, and we'll select SD card. And move down to ROMs, and then down to main, press the start button, and there we go. Tip number five, how to set the clock. There are a few games that can take advantage of the clock, so it's something you probably want to do. So we'll go in here to the clock app, and move over to setup, and we'll go ahead and press the start button. And you can adjust any of these values here for the year, month, day. And then once you're done, hit the start button. And then you can hit the select button. So we'll go ahead and do that here. Hit select again. And now the time has been set. Pretty cool. Now we'll go on to tip number six. What is the difference between USB 1 and USB 2? You probably first noticed when you got your RG350, you have two USB-C ports, one on the left, one on the right, USB 1 and USB-C 2. Okay, so the right side is the one you want to plug in your charging cable to, or your data cable. So in this case, we'll go ahead and open up the network app and connect over an FTP connection real quick. So yeah, that's your power and your data line. Now let's move on to the left USB or USB 1 port. This is one that I use for OTG connections to, let's say, an external controller or maybe a USB keyboard. Now, tip number 6 leads us into tip number 7, which is, how can I play a two-player game on Stella or the Atari 2600? Well, first, you need an OTG cable. And you don't have to use that big hub that I just used. You can use a simple adapter like this. So you just plug the USB-C connection in on the left-hand side. Don't put it in the right, it won't work on the right. Then we'll take a USB controller, such as this cheap little controller here, and plug it into the female end of the USB port. And we'll go over to the Stella emulator and go ahead and launch this. And we'll load up a game real quick. Then we'll go into the menu and go to Input Settings. And what we're going to do is remap Player 1 over to use the external controller. Now, I've only found this to work on this Stella emulator so far. If you find that it works in other emulators, please let me know in the comments below. So we're just going to go through and map each of the buttons here, the up, down, left, right, and the fire button. To map it, you select it, map, and then select the button. That's pretty much all there is to it. Now we'll do the right, click map, press the button, now it's mapped. And we'll do it one more time with the fire button. Over here so you can see, we hit map, now we press whichever button we want to use for the fire button, and there we go. Now we'll go ahead and exit this configuration tool, go back to combat. So here I'm playing directly on the RG350. Now we're going to move over to the controller, and as you can see, I am now controlling player 2. Pretty cool, huh? Alright, now let's see if I can control both at the same time. So I'm going to use both hands to move these tanks around, and sure enough, it works just fine. Now let's move on to tip number 8. Playing videos. Before you can play a video, you first need to convert it into a format that's appropriate for the RG350. Check out the links below on where to download Handbrake, and we're going to just drag and drop one of my last videos on the RG350 into Handbrake. And to convert it to a format that plays on the RG350, go to Presets, Devices, Apple 240p 30, and then we'll click it, and we'll click on the Browse button, and we'll give the file a name. So in this case, I'll just type easyfilecopy.mp4. And then we'll move over to the Save button, hit Save, and then we'll go ahead and click the Start Encode button. And special thanks to Tom B for giving me the tip here on how to do this. It's now also documented on the RG350 tips page. Take a look here. The source video is 517 meg. After converting it, it went all the way down to 14.3 meg. Huge savings. Alright, so now let's take the file and we're going to copy it over to the micro SD card. So we're going to go over here to Media, SD card, and we'll go over to the MP4 subdirectory and just right click in here and paste the file. From there, we will move over to the RG350 and go to the FF Play and go to the SD card, MP4, and there's our file. Let's check it out.
Hello and welcome to Wagner's Tech Talk. Today, in this video,
So you're watching me playing a video of me talking about something else. Pretty wild. And you can skip around, you can hit the D-pad right or left to fast forward or rewind. Pretty cool. If you check out the tips page, there's a few additional tips on some of the other buttons that you can use here. Pretty neat. Alright, let's move on to tip number 9, which is how to back up and restore game saves. Now for this one, I highly recommend checking out the tips page because there's a lot of information to go over and it doesn't fit real well in a 10-minute video. So check this out and it'll give you some general instructions on how to back up your game saves as well as how to restore them. Alright, let's move on to tip number 10, our last tip, how to exit emulators. When you're new to the RG350, it's one of the first things that you're going to need to learn, and it's not exactly easy. At least it wasn't for me. Anyway, if you go to the tips page, there is a section on exiting the various emulators. So you look up the emulator and how to exit in game. Here for FBA, it's select start plus the L and R button. To exit the list, press the select twice, and that's it. That is all our tips for this particular video. So now I do want to show you one more thing. I did receive a new RG350 accessory, and I wanted to go ahead and share it with you. So this came all the way from China. I ordered it like in November, and it arrived in late December. And yes, it's an RG350 case, which is pretty cool. I don't have a really good place to store mine aside from the stand that I've shown in prior videos, so I thought this is a great way to carry it with me on trips or when I'm going to visit friends. Pretty cool. It zips up nicely and it has a nice look to it. So I'll put a link in the description below if you're interested in picking up one of these. Just keep in mind, shipping's going to take a while. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video very informative. If you want to let me know you enjoyed the video, please click the like button. And if you want to see more from Wagner's Tech Talk, please click the subscribe. And with that, we shall see you very soon.